Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the SportzMoose Media Podcast. Ricky Dean, along with my compadre, Rick Burkett. Rick was a little under the weather last week. He didn't get to join me, but he's back to full strength. And I say back to full strength because, man, you were a little out of it last week because that brake job you tried to do on Big Red kind of whooped you down.
Well, I didn't try to do it. I did actually complete the task. It's a little tougher. Yeah. It's been a while since I did a brake job on a big old truck like that, but it strained my back a little bit. But I'm getting better each day. Yes, so.
That's funny.
And my truck stops when I hit the brake pedal.
Well, hey, we can talk brakes tonight. That's for one thing, because I'm going to tell you, after you having the issue with doing your brake job last week and actually us going to a ball game with you on a cane, okay, because you had messed yourself up to that point. My brake job that I had done today only cost me $725. So, but yeah, it was brakes all the way around and a hub assembly, and then, like they always do, they got in there and found something more. And so, they called me back and they said, oh, by the way, you got this problem, and it's something to do, I don't even know. I mean, you know how mechanical I am. I know where the gas goes in, and, I know where the key goes. I mean, I'm not a mechanic. You and your dad and Red and all y'all have always done my mechanicing for me. So I can't mechanic, but I know how to pay a mechanic because he taught me how to do that today. So, but my thing is there's something else that he said, I can't do your alignment without putting these parts, these two parts. Yeah, and so the alignment, there's two parts, and the two parts were not available locally, so they're coming in on a truck in the morning. So in the morning before work, I've got to take the little Jeep Patriot up there and give it back to them, so that when we cruise to East Bruton tomorrow night, that everything's done. But it will stop, like you said with yours. Mine will now stop, and it will stop on a dime. I mean, because you know why I know that? Because this little weather change today, I was coming home out here in Uri about dark, and a doe and a little yearling decides they wanted to cross the road before I got by them, and so I got on the dirt road. I got to lock the new brakes up. So,
good. That's just what you want to do with new brake pads.
Yeah,
lock them up like that. Get a good glaze on them.
Yeah,
My brake job cost it cost less than $100 for the pads and stuff I use, but it's I don't know how much I could extrapolate out from how much I make per day, but it put me out of action for several days.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'm not sure what the total cost of the brake job was. So I'm glad to hear yours are working properly.
Yeah, believe you me, mine are working properly, and you may have to actually, talk me down off the ledge after spending, $7.25 on brakes. But hey, the way I got to look at it is the fact that I remember times in my life when $725 for a brake job would have been crippling, and at least the Lord has blessed me enough that, hey, okay, all I can really do is just grumble a little bit, but that's why I go to work every day, is so I can
tell you what, and I know I can, and the good Lord has blessed both of us, and blessed us richly. And congratulations on your new job, and you're out there at Wind Creek Casino. I'm very proud of you.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, I really do.
Ricky is the new surveillance supervisor out there at Wind Creek, and
pump the brakes on that, surveillance manager, sir.
Surveillance manager.
I was promoted from surveillance supervisor to surveillance manager. And it only took me 15 years to get there. I mean, the wheels of commerce move a little slow. But
that sounds like a quote from one of our favorite John Wayne movies. You wore the yellow ribbon. Right. You might get promoted in 15, 20 years.
That's right. Yeah, I finally made it. So now the thing is that I just got to hang on to it, because all I'm trying to do is make retirement. I guess that's the goal for all of us, especially me at my age. So yeah, I finally made manager, and I've always joked that my job when I was in the supervisor role before is that my job was actually training managers, because we would hire somebody and they'd put them in and they were named the manager, but I had been at the property for so long that I knew everything that was going on, so I basically had to walk them through the process of how everything worked. And so I just jokingly would say that, my name's Ricky Dean, I'm supervisor at Wind Creek Surveillance, and I train managers. So that was the joke, but there was some truth to the joke. But now finally, I get to actually try to do the job. So anyway,
it's well deserved. I know, and you've been through a lot out there and worked hard, and congratulations.
I appreciate it. It's a good place to work. And they've done nothing but good things for me and my family in the 17 and a half years that I've been out there. So I cannot complain. Certainly cannot. And it's just amazing when you think about it, because really my goal is approaching 62. I'll probably continue to work until I'm 67. So I've been out there a bunch of years. It's just hard to believe that because you both know how things were when we were younger. The fact that I've actually worked in the same place for almost 20 years is just amazing, because I've bounced around a little bit in my different varying careers. So, and some of it I bounced around by my own way. But anyway, yeah, I've had a lot going on. But anyway, enough about that stuff. Enough about me. Unless you just really want to talk about me some more. But enough about me. And let's talk about high school football, man. We got a lot of high school football, especially this week. It's the second week. It's round 2 of the Alabama High School Athletic Association playoffs. And we'll talk first about the playoffs in the 7A classification. And, of course, some good games and some games with some teams that we are familiar with now. Auburn High School last week, they beat Bob Jones by a score of 63-27, so no defense there in that one. But Auburn advances. Auburn will take on Thompson High School. That game will be played in Auburn. So Thompson, we're familiar with Thompson too, because man, Thompson has just for the past 5-6 years or so.
10 years, yeah.
They it was Hoover. Remember back in the day when it was always Hoover, and Thompson kind of dethroned Hoover as that top team in 7A. And anyway, Thompson back in there again. And that remember the little old quarterback. The Seaborn boy, I think it's Seaborn, isn't it? The quarterback that they've got that started and won a state championship with Thompson as not even eighth grader. Yeah, he was like an 8th grader, and went in and because the starting quarterback was hurt, he went in, ended up winning a state championship as an 8th grader. Well, he may be in the 10th grade now, I think, he could be a junior. I don't think he is. I think he's just around the 10th grade. But anyway, Thompson and Auburn will be playing in Auburn. Also, teams, a team from Mobile that you're familiar with, because you pass it I pass it when I'm going out there to visit you at your house. Baker and Enterprise. The Baker Hornets are in the playoffs, and they're going to be heading. They beat Hewitt Trustful last week by a score of 17-14 in a real good game, and so Baker goes to Enterprise and takes on Enterprise.
Yeah, and this Baker team is probably out there in West Mobile is probably got the best team they've had since that little kid that I coached that went to Trey Millen had played on that team. Since they played Prattville in the playoffs in the semifinals back in 2017, I believe, 16 or 17. And so this is the best Baker team, the Baker Hornet team in the last 7 or 8 years, anyhow.
Yeah, Baker's a good football team, and they're going to Enterprise. Of course, man, that's a trip. There's no easy way to get to Enterprise, Alabama. In other games, Vestavia Hills. Now, this is really what I consider more of a northern game, northern Alabama. Vestavia Hills. I think they upset them. I know they did because Mary Montgomery was the home team. Vestavia Hills upset Mary G. Montgomery last week by a score of 42-21. They doubled them up and knocked out Mary Montgomery. So Vestavia Hills advances to the second round. They'll take on Central Phoenix City. And Central Phoenix City is, I think they're probably loaded for bear like they always are. They play James Clemens, and they will be at James Clemens. Now, the reason I say Central Phoenix City is loaded for bear, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. I read the bracket wrong. They played James Clemens last week, so they're going to play Vestavia Hills, but Central Phoenix City beat James Clemens last week by a score of 70-14 in a first-round playoff grade.
Yeah, you remember Central is the defending champions from last year, so
right.
They as they say, they don't rebuild, they just reload. So should be a good game though. Vestavia's got a good thing going this year.
And in the last game, there's 4 games this week in 7A. In the last game, it's going to be Hoover and Opelika. Hoover and Opelika will play at Hoover. And I think Hoover, they may still be playing at the Hoover Met. But anyway, the funny thing is, and you and I talked about this kind of off the air before we started, is that I read the article, and you read the article. Opelika's coach, and I can't even remember the guy's name, is just struck me as funny. I tell you what, he did his impression of Harbaugh at Michigan and decided to steal some signs. Not only did he decide to steal some signs, he got one of the press credentials from a student press member that was probably taking pictures for the yearbook, and ends up going to the Hoover Opelika, or he went to the Hoover. What game was that? They played Fairhope. Hoover played Fairhope, and I think they played them on Thursday night. Anyway, he ended up at that game, did the Opelika head coach, and was pictured on the sideline scouting Hoover. And so he's got to serve a 1-game suspension tomorrow night for basically going and doing live scouting. And the Alabama high school, yeah, he was on the sideline, yeah, with a clipboard, and a press credential that wasn't his. And so
not only breaking rules, you just have to question the guys, not just his priorities, but his moral compass.
I mean,
you got to get yourself together, man. If you're doing stuff like that, I know the pressure is immense on these guys to win, but I mean, good night, Irene. That's
okay. And you say that, but I mean, how much of a dollar figure can you put on your moral compass? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, okay, so the sign stealing thing with Michigan with Harbaugh was a big deal and everything like that. But you're talking about a coach's salary of $10-12 million a year. So okay, so you're protecting that. But what kind of price are you putting on your own your own moral compass when you basically throw your ethics and everything out the window, and you say, you know what, I need to know what Hoover's going to run. Now, what that tells me is I'm questioning my coaching ability. If I can't put together a game plan based on huddle film And
you get film on them anyhow. Right. You know, I mean, they all get film on the games up to that point. So yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of crazy.
I mean, you know this for a fact. You can even scout people without getting film on them. All you got to do is have a YouTube channel. Just about every high school football game in the state of Alabama has got a YouTube feed now.
Yeah, I know it. I don't know. It's just, I was very surprised to see that myself. But,
anyway, those are your 7A games, but that just I wanted to touch on that because I just thought, I mean, it is funny in a way, but more than being funny, it's sad. I mean, it's sad to think about the way high school football, well, sports in general. You know, I mean, you know, if we did things in our lives, and I know you've heard this said before, if we did things in our lives like raised our kids and went to church and did things, you know, worked our jobs the way with the same attitude and vile and vigor that we did when we went and cheered on our favorite sports team, man, everybody would be a superhero. But you know, we don't do that. We choose not to. But anyway, that's another story and probably another podcast. But okay, so let's move to Class 6A now, because there's some good games, good local teams participating still in the second round in Class 6A. Big game tomorrow night will be over in Mobile. It'll be St. Paul's against Pike Road. So St. Paul's will be at home. They will host Pike Road from Montgomery. Pike Road was a winner last week against Bessemer City, beat them 37-7. St. Paul's defeated Helena by a score of 26-0. So St. Paul's advance and will be at home tomorrow night against Pike Road. Spanish Fort advances. They got all over. Well, they didn't really get all over them. They beat them by a couple of touchdowns by 14 points. Spanish Fort beat Benjamin Russell last week by a score of 49-35. Spanish Fort was at home last week. They got to go on the road this week as they will take on Hueytown up in Hueytown. Hueytown beat Percy Julian by a score of 28-21. So it'll be Hueytown taking on Spanish Fort. That game, Spanish Fort will be on the road. Now, you know, this is our bunch right here that we like to follow when things in for us, and I'm sure we probably will again because they'll still be in it if we are not. But Saraland, the Saraland team, they beat Chelsea by a score of 42-3 last week. They were at home. Saraland stays at home this week, and they will play McAdory. McAdory beat Wetumpka in a very close ball game, 24-23 last week. So McAdory advances, but I mean, I don't know how excited you can get about advancing and then realize that you got to, you know, I mean, it's like we've. How do you beat Saraland? If you're playing them at your place, you give them the wrong directions to the stadium. I mean, that's about the only way you're gonna get ahead. I mean, that's one of those things where, I mean, dude, they're loaded with D1 talent, and they're well coached, and Saraland too.
And they're nice folks too. I mean,
they are.
You and I did a couple games there last year, and went to them, and they're just as nice of folks as you'll see anywhere.
Oh yeah,
so we'll definitely be pulling for them.
Yeah, because it gives us something to do. If we run out of things to do, we can go over to Saraland and watch a game, and that's always cool. And I mean, because as far as a high school football atmosphere, it's one of the best high school football atmospheres. I mean, it's like being at a college game. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Other games here, Spain Park will be at home, and Spain Park up in the Birmingham area, they play Russell County. Of course, you know, somebody from our neck of the woods affiliated with Spain Park, and I think he still is Murray Hill, who used to be a running back for the 1983 state championship Blue Devils.
That's right.
Murray is the principal at Spain Park High School, or was, and I think he still is. As a matter of fact, I don't know whether you remember her or not. When I was working on the radio in Atmore back in '91, there was a little girl, a little cheerleader, as a matter of fact, from down at Walnut Hill. And she worked for us at the radio station. And as a matter of fact, her daughters go to. She's got daughters that go to. Well, a couple of them have graduated, and her daughters have, and they're at the University of Alabama. She's still got a son at Spain Park, but yeah, I mean. Tabitha Hanks was her name when she was in high school, and she was there. And Tabitha worked with me at the radio station, and you know, she just a great girl. Matter of fact, her mom was a school teacher down at Walnut Hill. That was when it was Walnut Hill, by the way, and before Northview came about. And her dad, Mike Hanks, was the leader of the American Legion, the Veterans Affairs guy. Not really the American Legion, but he was he was the Veteran Affairs guy. Because I remember when my dad passed away, and we wanted to get him one of those military, headstones. I had to go to see Mr. Mike, and Mr. Mike took care of that for us. So just good folks, and we try to keep in touch with all the Atmore folks and where they are and what we're doing. So Spain Park and Russell County will be playing, and really those are about the only games that really of any consequence to us down here in South Alabama. The rest of them are all those Yankee teams from north of Montgomery. And so, I mean, I'll just run through them real quick. Oxford will host Hartselle in a game. Now, we know about this place too. Homewood will travel to Fort Payne. Of course, Fort Payne is where the band Alabama's from. I've been through Fort Payne before. It's a cool little place. We used to go up there to June Jams. Speaking of, working at the radio station way back, I remember we used to go to June Jam in the summer back in the 90s and everything. Mountain Brook will host Parker, and Muscle Shoals from way up there in the northern part of the state, northwest part of the state, home of the Swampers. They take on Clay Chalkville in a game. So that's your 6A games that are happening this week, and we'll just quickly move along and move through, because we just trying to touch on these playoff games that are going on, and we may not give a lot of credence to a lot of them. We're trying to cover the games from teams that we're familiar with and in our area down here in Southwest Alabama. So now we go to Class 5A, and Catholic of Montgomery will be taking on Central Neil. Now, Catholic of Montgomery, we passed the other night when we were with Neil in Montgomery, we passed right by Catholic of Montgomery, where they were playing.
Okay, right there beside St. James, yeah.
That's right, yeah. I mean, it's right there on Vaughn Road. And so Catholic of Montgomery will be on the road this week. They go to Central Neil, and man, I didn't realize Central Neil was as good as they are. But Central Neil's been a good football team this year, and they've advanced. They advanced last week. They beat Shelby County in a close game by a score of 14-9. Doesn't matter what you win by, though, as long as you win by one, you're a winner. And so Central Neil ain't nothing but a bunch of winners, and so they're going to be hosting the second round playoff game against Catholic of Montgomery. Now, my understanding is that Catholic of Montgomery is really good. They beat Hopeville last week. They got a little offense at Catholic. They scored 52 and allowed Nairn. So they beat Hopeville 52-0. In other games that are from area schools, Williamson, the Lions from Williamson High School over in Mobile, they beat Northside 46-0 last week. They advance, but they got a tough one. They go on the road. They play Central Clay County, and Central Clay County beat Greenville this past Friday night 49-0. The Viger Wolves, we talked about Vigers defense, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that. But Viger, who plays great defense, and they played great defense last week against Sipsey Valley. Viger beat them 46-0, and they will take on Eufaula. Eufaula beat Beauregard 30-20, so it'll be Viger traveling across the state over there to the Wiregrass, and they'll be playing Eufaula. But man, people are talking about this Viger defense like they're just absolutely unbelievable.
They are. I mean, of course, people that know the history of Viger and some of those great teams from the 80s and 90s, but they're sort of like, our favorite college team, Alabama. They just got a history of those great defenses. And I mean, and they're very proud of it. And if you're over there at Viger High School, in their trophy case, they zone in on their defense. I think this last Friday night, that was their 7th shutout so far this season. I think they lead the state, giving up less than 4 points per game amongst all classifications. So the Wolfpack defense, I mean, they've got it going on, and it's they used to say about Coach Bryant at Alabama's defense is trying to score on them is like trying to climb a cactus, slow and painful. And so we'll be pulling for the Viger Wolves this Friday night.
Yeah, they're obviously a really good football team. Now, one other surprise is the 4 seed in class. What is this we're talking about? 5A?
5A.
Yeah, 5A. In class 5A Region 1, the 4 seed, UMS Wright. They go to the 1 seed in Region 3, which was Demopolis, beat them 21-7, and so UMS Wright is going to be at home this week over there on Old Shell Road, and they'll be taking on the Andalusia Bulldogs, as Andalusia picked up a win last week over Elmore County by a score of 27-7. So it'll be UMS Wright, our buddy, Coach Terry Curtis. He's always got a good one. He's always got a good football team, and they're obviously, even though they're the 4 seed, they pick up a first-round win. Now, Andalusia's tough. I've heard a lot about Andalusia. Andalusia's got a good running game, and they're really stout on defense. But UMS Wright, you better not count Terry Curtis out, because he'll find a way to beat you.
That's right. I mean, how many times has he done that since he's not just there, but at other schools? Yeah, I mean, if he gets into the playoffs, you got to watch out for him. He's won a couple of state championships when he started out like as the 4 seed. But would go all the way through and win the game. So, and just like our very own Eagles, their defense was a problem at the beginning of the year for UMS Wright. But they've gotten steadily better throughout the year. And that was a big upset, beating Demopolis. I mean, there was a lot of people who thought Demopolis had a good shot at getting that elusive state championship this year. And UMS goes up there and holds them to 7 points, beats them 21-7. And of course, Andalusia, back in the old days, was an old rival of Atmore. But they've got a very good team too, and so it should be a good one out there on Old Shell Road.
Yeah, it'll be a good one for sure, and I'm sure Coach Terry Curtis, he'll have that bunch of his, man. They'll be ready to play. In other games, these are the North games in Class 5A. Winona will take on Moody. Scottsboro from way up there. I got kid folks up in that neck of the woods, up around Scottsboro and Gunnersville and up there. Grant, Alabama. Yeah, Grant. I'm sorry, Grant. Yeah, Grant, Alabama. Up there on what we in Alabama call a mountain, up there around Grant, Alabama, and that's. I remember going up there as a young pup, as they say, and hanging out got a bunch of Keels up there. K-double-E-L. That was my pawpaw's name. He was a Keel, J.C. Keel from Atmore, and so his brothers and all, and my great grandfather Cecil Keel, and my grandma, my great grandma, called them Big Mama and Big Pawpaw. They lived up in Grant. So I remember going up there. It's pretty cool. Pawpaw Keel owned a store, And I can remember going to that old store on Saturday mornings and stuff when we'd go up there and visit. And man, up there on that mountain, it'd be cold, because it was up. There wasn't nothing up there to block the wind. It just blowed all the time. And so, but them old men would come in. It was so cool because they would come in, and Pawpaw got he got raw peanuts in the fall in a barrel. And he'd have a barrel full of raw peanuts, and it would just be open. And there was a pot-bellied stove in there that they'd light a fire in on them cold mornings. And them old men would come in and get them a cup of coffee, and they'd throw them peanuts up on top of the pot-belly stove, and they'd parch those peanuts and reach up there and pop them off while they were still warm and pop the shell off of them. And they'd sit there and eat those parched peanuts and drink coffee. And that's one of the memories I have of going up there and hanging out. So other games that we've got also in Class 5A, the North games, Corner will be hosting Boaz, and Fairview will take on Leeds up there around Birmingham as well. So those are the North teams in Class 5A. As we continue to move along, let's get to the classification that Rick and I are really familiar with, as we have been working games in the Class 4A group this year, since Neal got bumped up to Class 4A out of 3A. And the Neal Blue Eagles, they picked up a big win last week over St. James, beat them 16-6 in a game that was scoreless for 3 quarters. And then St. James scored first to score 6 points, missed the extra point. And then Neal came storming back and scored 2 touchdowns at the end of the third and into the fourth quarter, and end up winning at 16-6. So Neal advances and will host. We'll be going up against Fairfield, and Fairfield was actually on the road last week, and so I can't remember whether Fairfield was a 3 seed. I think they may have been a 4. Yeah, they were the 4 and beat the 1. They beat Dale County. They beat them 33-21. So obviously Fairfield a little better than folks giving them credit for. But anyway, Neal and Fairfield, we'll have that game for you on WBZR 105.9 FM on Friday night. And, of course, we'll go on the air about 6:30, 6:40, somewhere in there. Kickoff will be at 7 o'clock. Rick and I will be there at Buddy Taylor Stadium in East Bruton. We're excited. The whole town of East Bruton's excited about getting to host a second-round game. So it'll be Neal and Fairfield, and we're looking forward to it. Rick, Neal's playing good football right now.
They really are. They started off the season 0-4, but were very competitive in all 4 of those games. In fact, should have won a couple of them. And the problem was just youth out of a roster of 59 players. They've only got 9 seniors, and they're good seniors, but they're a young team. So a lot of times it takes a little while for that discipline to come around on defense. And about midway through the season, the coaches kind of changed some things on their defense by the way they did things, simplified things, went to a couple of different techniques on defense, and they've been steadily improving. So just like last week, St. James scored a lot of points during the football season, and were a number 2 seed. So for Neal to go up there and beat them, and then they shut them out. The 6 points that they scored, St. James scored, was a pick 6.
Right.
But, Neal's defense gave up 0 touchdowns last week. So we got, like you said, the Bruton area is excited. Hopefully, and the rest of Escambia County is excited for them, and we're looking forward to tomorrow night. And I think Neal's got a good shot at it.
Yeah, well, you got 2 teams from right there in Bruton that are still in the playoffs, and we'll talk about the other team here in just a little bit when we go down a classification. But you got Neal hosting a playoff game, and I got to look because I hadn't really looked ahead. I hadn't peeked ahead, but T.R. Miller is going to be playing in the second round, so they'll be either at home or away, and we'll talk about them in just a minute. So right there, just from the Battle of Murder Creek, you got those 2 teams that you can basically throw. They can stand there on the creek banks and throw rocks at each other across the way, and both of them are in the playoffs. So I mean, that's cool. And so I'm sure that Bruton and East Bruton are both very proud. The whole of Escambia County is proud of those two teams. Of course, there's a couple of teams that are sitting home this year and didn't quite make the playoffs, but you can't make it every year. And what that tells you is when you don't make it, you just got to play harder next year and get a little better. And a lot of it is you got to have the right personnel. Football, high school football especially, it goes through cycles. I mean, some years you have the kids, you got the Jimmies and the Joes, and sometimes you don't. And so you just got to you play hard. You play your 9 or 10 games during the year. If you make it, you continue, and if you don't, and unfortunately, some of our schools here locally, well, they're playing basketball now, but we're keeping an eye on Neal and Miller as they both continue in the playoffs, and we'll talk about Miller here in just a few minutes. In other games from teams locally that we're familiar with, St. Michael got all over Hanley last week. There was no defense in this game. They scored 103 points in this one. St. Michael scored 63 points in a high school football game and gave up 40. I'm still not sure about how you do that. I didn't even know that was enough time. I didn't know 48 minutes was enough time to score 103 points, to be honest with you, unless you were playing basketball. And so anyway, but St. Michael goes on the road to take on Pleasant Grove. The Jackson Aggies, we've seen them. They're legit. They're everything that they're talked about being. They just beat the hair off of Bullock County last week. Beat them 55-0, and so they cruised to victory, and they will take on Bibb County. Now, Bibb County scored a lot of points last week against Opp. They beat Opp 49-14, so that'll probably be a good game in Jackson, as Jackson will host Bibb County. And Tallahassee they beat Mobile Christian last week.
We'll send parking directions to the folks up in Centerville and Bibb County.
Well, no. All I can say is get there early because
and get ready to walk.
And get ready to walk, yeah. And I mean, they're nice folks over in Jackson. I mean, they are, but I mean, that's probably the hardest high school football game as far as finding a place to park and getting, especially radio equipment, to where we could do a game and broadcast a game. And then we didn't even get access to the press box. We had to do it from the stands, which we don't mind doing, but, it'll at least make us feel at home while we're over there. And we didn't really feel either, so it's okay. But we just didn't feel like we weren't at home, so they were treating us like we were visitors, and we certainly were. And another bad thing is
especially the 48-0 score.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that was another thing too. Is I was going to say we were there on their homecoming night, so they weren't going to be nice to us on their homecoming night.
Yeah.
I mean, and the last game with Tallahassee is going to be hosting Ashford. So Tallahassee won. They beat Mobile Christian 21-14, so Mobile Christian ends their year. That was not a very Mobile Christian-like year as far as the Leopards football season went, but they'll be back. I mean, because they've just got they're in a good spot over there in Mobile, and they can go out and recruit some athletes and find some that a lot of folks can't get. They just had a down year, and I think a lot of it is attributed to when Coach Cottrell left. It's like being anywhere. I mean, when your head coach that's been there and been a winner for so many years leaves, people look for other places to go. I mean, they really do, and I think that's what happened at Mobile Christian. Over on the northern side of the bracket, Cherokee County will take on Central Florence. Alexandria will be on the road. They'll go to Brooks. Good Hope will be on the road. They'll go to Anniston. And West Morgan will be on the road. They'll play at Madison Academy. Madison Academy is always good, man. Back several years ago when I used to go up to the Super Sevens all the time when I was really following high school football because my son was a high school football athlete at J.U. Blackshear, we would go up to those games, and, man, Madison Academy was always in the playoffs. They were always, matter of fact, not always in the playoffs, they were always in the Super 7 in whatever classification that they were in.
Yeah, very good tradition there for sure.
All right, so now let's go to Class 3A. You know, we talked about T.R. Miller, so T.R. Miller is still alive in Class 3A. But the first game we'll give you from the South bracket is going to be Montgomery Academy taking on South Side of Selma. Alabama Christian from Montgomery, they will be playing a team of local interest for us down here out of Baldwin County. Bayside Academy picked up a win last week, 36-6 over Hale County. So Bayside Academy advances, and they'll play Alabama Christian in Montgomery. T.R. Miller hosted Thorsby last week, beat them 49-7, and it looks like Miller is going to go on the road, and they will take on Trinity. They will go to Trinity. Trinity beat Randolph County last week, so Trinity advances, and they will be the next opponent for T.R. Miller. We've seen T.R. Miller in person. T.R. Miller is a good football team.
Oh, they sure are. That's their big running back linebacker is the same with Florida. I mean, he's all he's advertised as, and of course we wish the Tigers best of luck.
And also looking down the last game that we'll talk about here from the South bracket, you know, there's some good folks over in Thomasville. I just remember going over there last year when Neil played them over there. That's probably one of the nicest places we've ever been treated to. Man, you talk about a bunch of people that just went overboard to treat us nice, being the opposition's radio coverage guys. Man, Thomasville treated us great. Thomasville won last week in a close game, closer than what I expected. They played Excel, and Thomasville beat Excel, but only beat them 34-30. Excel got after Thomasville, but just fell a little bit short. Now, Thomasville's got to host Houston Academy. Houston Academy beat Beulah last week by a score of 62-13, so it'll be Thomasville and Houston Academy. That game will be in Thomasville. And, man, that's a beautiful place to play football, too, isn't it, Rick? That stadium over there, man, they're proud of that place, and they've got every right to be. That is a beautiful high school football complex in Thomasville.
It is. It's like going to a small college stadium. I mean, it's just beautiful. The grass is beautiful. They've got plenty of room for visitors. They got 2 concession stands, and like you said, the mayor of Thomasville is the PA announcer, and he went out of his way to go show us where we would be set up at, and then hung around and talked to us about everything that the various people had poured into that place up there, getting that stadium built from what they used to have years ago. And I mean, it's super duper nice. But what's even nicer is just the way the folks treat you there up in Thomasville.
Oh yeah, they're really good folks, and they treated us well. We look forward to having an opportunity maybe to go back over there and cover a game in the future. In other games taking place in Class 3A this week, the Northern games, Piedmont will take on Lauderdale County. Fife will play Gordo. Winfield will play Sylvania. And the last game in that northern side of the bracket will be Geraldine hosting Mars Hill. So those are your Class 3A games. Now let's move on to Class 4A as we, Class 2A as we, I was trying to make us go forward instead of backwards. But Class 2A here, couple of teams of local interest still in it. You know, my JU Blackshear Bulldogs got beat last week. Laverne came in and snuck them by 4, beat them 23-19. So Blackshear ended up getting out. But Laverne is a perennial power. But anyway, here's your games. Cottonwood will be playing Goshen in a game in the South bracket. Laverne, who advanced by beating the Bulldogs of JU Blackshear last week, Laverne will be hosting Reeltown. Reeltown's a good team. Reeltown beat Houston County last week to advance, beat them 65-0. So they put up some points in Reeltown. Whenever you talk about high school football and 2A football, especially in the state of Alabama, the the name of Reeltown pops up in that conversation. Clark County, the Bulldogs from Grove Hill over there, they're still alive. They beat Zion Chapel last week, 41-12. They advance to take on Ayrton, the Purple Cats. The Ayrton Purple Cats. That's the name of their team. And so Clark County will go to Ayrton to take on the Ayrton Purple Cats. And the Flying Squadron. See, these are cool names for high school football. The Highland Home Flying Squadron. That is the name of their team, the Flying Squadron of Highland Home. And they will be hosting Providence Christian. And the Flying Squadron, they flew all over St. Luke's last week and dropped a bomb on them too. Beat them 51-0. Now, Providence Christian also scored some points. They scored 53, and Horseshoe Bend, they beat Horseshoe Bend by a score of 53-28. But the Flying Squadron of Highland Home will be at home against Providence Christian, and that's in Class 2A. Your northern games from Class 2A this week will have Sulligent hosting Southeastern. Winston County will host Vincent. Susan Moore will take on Tuscaloosa Academy at Susan Moore, and Pisgah will be taking on Falkville. So those are your other 2A games from the northern part of the state as we continue to move on. That brings us now all the way down to Class 1A. And the playoff bracket for Class 1A, it looks like this. We do have some teams of local interest that are in this. The Mulry, they'll be playing on Wildcat Hill over in Mulry, Alabama. I've been over there a time or two with some battles, doing baseball games on the radio and watching football games when my son Cooper played for J.U. Blacksher. But Mulry will be hosting McKenzie. McKenzie beat Keith last week by a score of 50-6. Now, I want to tell you something. McKenzie is probably favored in this game because McKenzie is a beast. I got a guy I work with that, man, we talk about McKenzie Tiger football all the time, and dude, he says that this McKenzie team is legit. Another team that's real good, that if you're going to mention 1A football in the state of Alabama, you got to talk about them. And they beat our buddy. Remember he was coaching at Atmore for a while, and doggone it, I'm going to sit here and forget his name. But anyway, he left. He was at DAR school up in Grant, Alabama. I told you about him. Had coached the
Mark Heaton.
No, it's not Heaton. No, it's not. And he's going to kill me if he hears this broadcast. And I didn't remember his name, but I used to umpire baseball with him. But anyway, he now coaches over at Florala, and they had a good year this year, but they got beat the first round of the playoffs. But anyway, Florala got beat by Maplesville, so Maplesville advances. Now, if you want to talk about a 1A football game with two prestigious names in 1A football in the state of Alabama, Maplesville takes on Sweetwater.
Oh.
That would be a battle. Yeah. That would be worth the price of admission right there. And here's another one. These 1A games are legit. Here's another one. You got to go to Georgiana. And Georgiana's got a good football team. Well, guess who Georgiana plays? The Leroy Bears. So,
that'll be a good game.
Yeah, man, you talk about a slobber knocker now. You talk about folks getting after each other.
Two good defenses. Yeah, once again, get back to those defenses, and that will be a slobber knocker.
Well, and here's another one. This is what's so crazy. These are all just good games. All four of them. So I'm going to walk down them real quick. Mulry will host McKenzie. That's game number one. That's a great one. Maplesville will host Sweetwater. That's going to be a great one. Georgiana will host Leroy. That's going to be a great one. And the last one in Class 1A in the South in the state of Alabama, Linden is hosting Elba.
Oh, my goodness.
And the kid from Elba's got a running back, and I don't know the kid's name because I didn't do research on all these schools that we're talking about, but I do remember hearing this on the Alabama High School Scoreboard show last week. The running back for Elba, the kid just broke. He's one of only like 8 running backs in the history of high school football in the United States to rush for over 10,000 yards in his career. He broke the 10,000-yard mark for 12, his high school career.
12,000.
Was it 12? I thought it was 10.
12, yeah. He surpassed Derrick Henry in his when Derrick was over at Yulee High School in northeast Florida, over there north of Jacksonville, and he surpassed Derrick Henry. You're right; it's like only 8 players in the United States have been over 12,000 yards, and now he passed Derrick Henry's mark. He's like at number 6 or something like that, and now holds the all-time Alabama record and didn't just break it. I think the old record was like 10,000 and something yards for the state of Alabama. Now he owns it all by himself, and it's going to be a while before anybody breaks it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, other games as we continue to look, so those are going to be 4 games, and those are all South games. I mean, that's one side of the bracket with those great games. Other games that are happening in Class 1A, Wadley will be hosting Meek. Spring Garden will host Barry Fayette. Lynn is hosting, and they're hoping too. They're hoping to get a win, but Lynn is hosting Appalachian, and Hackleburg will take on Winterboro. So that wraps up your Class 1A games in the state of Alabama. Well, and before we wrap this thing up, we want to be all inclusive with everybody. So we would be amiss if we didn't run down the playoff pairings for the games in the second round games for AISA. And we'll start with Class 3A because there are still some schools of local interest, some schools that we're familiar with, Rick. Poor Monroe Academy. And you got a feel for them. This is in Class 3A in AISA. Monroe Academy's got to make that trip, and they go to Chambers Academy. So, man, you know what I remember about going to Chambers Academy, other than that speaker pounding in my ear for 4 quarters, was the girl. Remember the girl that rides the horse, and they have the John Wayne thing that. Yeah. The story about the American flag, and the girl is holding the American flag. That is one of the coolest pregame traditions of any high school game that I've ever been a part of. To hear that, to hear one of my favorite my favorite actor of all time, John Wayne, and he's doing the story about the American flag, and she's riding on horseback with the flag like a rodeo queen, and man, that's an incredible atmosphere. Now, they don't treat you very nice either if you're the opposition radio guy, because they put you underneath the loudest speaker that you'll ever hear, and it's not like it's a loud Bose speaker. This is like a loud Tandy Radio Shack speaker from the 1970s that's got static and everything else in it, but it's pounding in your ear for 4 quarters. So anyway, Monroe Academy, the Vols, they got to go north. Chambers Academy, good luck, Monroe. You're going to a tough place to play. Also, Fort Dale Academy is going to be at home up in Greenville. They host Bessemer. So those are the Class 3A games. These are semifinal matchups, by the way, in Class 2A, because they only have 3 rounds. Now, if we look down at Class 2A, up there in Lounsboro, that bunch from Lowndes Academy, they won a baseball state championship back in the spring, and they're on the verge. They're kind of moving toward a football state championship here in this fall in this new school year. But Lowndes Academy will take on Patrician Academy. Patrician's always tough. South Choctaw Academy will be hosting Wilcox Academy. So those are your second round games in Class 2A. And as we continue down in the AISA class, the single A, the Class A games, Cornerstone Christian will take on Evangel Christian Academy. So those two schools will be in one round. Cornerstone advanced courtesy of a forfeit by North River Christian. Evangel beat Southern Prep Academy by a score of 50-0, so they advance. So that game will be at Cornerstone Christian. And the last game in class, the 1A bracket in AISA, Springwood Academy, they also won a forfeited game from Meadowview Christian. Macon East Academy beat Lakeside 62-7, so it'll be Springwood hosting Macon East Academy, and that'll be the second game of the night for that Class A bracket in AISA. And Rick, we've gone through 7 to 1A in the Alabama High School Athletic Association, and we've gone in the 3 classifications in AISA. So a lot of football to talk about. And of course, we've talked about my brake job, and we talked about the one that you did that like to kill you. And
now all we got to do is just look forward to our game tomorrow night.
That's right. That's right. And we're looking forward to it too, man. It's going to be an exciting night. It'll
be pretty cool. I was going to tell you, make sure you bring something. You almost froze to death at the game a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I did.
It should be about 56 degrees at kickoff, so it should be nice and cool. Perfect football weather, clear skies. So.
Yeah, it's going to be nice because, there for a second we had, what do they call that? Do they call, is that like a, I don't know, is it Indian summer that they call it, or whatever, where you have that first little cool snap, and then all of a sudden it heats back up. And then now that it's heated back up, and we've had, a couple of hurricanes down in the Gulf, so all the atmosphere gets stirred up. And now as it starts, because, man, we're what, 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving, and so it's time for it to get cold. It's fixing to get burr outside, It's the way I always describe it. I'm waiting on the first time I walk out there and kind of shiver and walk back in and grab a jacket. I'm ready for it to bust the bark slam off the trees myself, because I'm just ready.
I know you like that cold weather.
I do, man. I love it. And it'll be a lot of fun. But anyway, so we've been talking about football, and like I say, we'll be on the air tomorrow night on WBZR 105.9 FM in Atmore if you're local around the Atmore area. And so tune in with us. And this podcast, we're going to continue to do them all through the playoffs and even beyond. Now that my job life has changed and everything else, we got some things in the works. So anyway, we're working on some things, and we're not going to talk about them much now until we actually are able to iron out some of the stuff. But this podcast can be found wherever you want to go pick up a podcast. It's on Amazon Music. It's on YouTube. It's on Podbean. It's just anywhere that you normally go get a podcast, you can find SportzMoose Media. Now keep in mind, it's SportzMoose Media, and it's sports with a Z. SportzMoose. SportzMoose Media. And look for us. It's got a cool logo too. I like our little moose logo with all the
me too.
All the balls around the bottom. Yeah, that's really cool. We need T-shirts. We need SportzMoose Media T-shirts is what we need. We need to get in that whole merchandising thing. We need to crank that up.
That's
by
right.
the way, I don't know why we hadn't done that already. Probably because one of the two, maybe both of us. Maybe we're just lazy, and in that way, and we haven't done it. But anyway, that's going to do it for us tonight, and we're so glad that you tuned in, and I hope that you've listened to this entire 57 minutes of talking football, of high school football in the state of Alabama. And we hope that once you find us, that you'll like us and that you'll tune in again. Rick, man, you and the bride have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow afternoon, and we'll be on our way to go do some high school football on the radio. It'll be the second round of the playoffs.
All right, Ricky. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir, buddy. Good to have you with us. Want to thank you fine folks for joining us tonight. Join us again next week for the SportzMoose Media Podcast as we just try to have fun. We're just a couple of old guys that like high school football. We like high school football in the state of Alabama, and we like to talk about it. And so we try to just spread some good cheer and talk about a game that we've grown to love over the years. So tune in again. Keep it right here. We'd love to have you just each and every week as we continue doing the SportzMoose Media Podcast. It's available wherever you can find a podcast on the airwaves. Good night, everybody. Until next week.